Hi-yo, it is Lalev from Adisoft, and in this quick tutorial I will show you how to draw 2D drawings using Autocad. First, I will explain why Autocad. The advantages of Autocad are widely known, but I will just mention them. First, Autocad is the most used program for 2D drawings, in my opinion, and in countless studies. Second, it has modifiable and customizable user interface, which makes it customizable to your needs. And also you can simplify the user interface, speeding the loading time and operational calculational time. Third, Autocad can be compatible with many other programs for 3D and rendering. These include Revit, 3ds Max, Grasshopper, and so on. These programs can import Autocad drawings and build the 3D environment from there. So let's start. For 2D drawings, you basically need to learn about 10 commands for shapes and 15 commands for procedures with these shapes. I am in drafting and annotation workspace. If you want to change the workspace, you can either go to the top here on this panel, it's always visible, and select the workspace. By clicking some other workspaces you can change the workspace, but now we are in drafting and annotation. I forgot to mention, I'm using AutoCAD 2013, but you can use any AutoCAD you prefer, like AutoCAD 2006, 2004, or even 2016. It is the same in all versions. These commands are all applicable there. So if we go to drafting and annotation and home, this is the menu we will need. First, we have some information. I have some information to say about the workspace here. These are the commands to build shapes, like line, polyline, circle, arc, and so on. These are the operations to modify these shapes, like move to move the shape, rotate, rotating it, trim to trim certain elements of the shape, copy, and so on. I will explain them later. These are the layers. Every shape, when drawing it, goes to its according layer. You select the layer by this drop down menu, or if you want, you can right click on any of the screens and just go to AutoCAD and click on layers, and you have a more detailed version of the layers. Here are all the layers. The layer that is selected will be the current layer. That means whatever I draw will go in this layer. Layers are very important. I will explain later why and demonstrate few operations with layers. But don't forget, any shape you draw goes to its according layer. And by working with layers intelligently, you can greatly increase your speed and organize your drawing. We have this toolbar, which is for text. I will mention it. It's also one of the most used commands in 2D drawings. Insert, we use this for blocks. Blocks are basically group of elements that may have certain attributes and they are unified by their function. Like you have a group of furniture elements, group of mechanical elements, and you can insert them with one click instead of copying all elements and pasting it. The block is one element. It may contain many sub-elements like many lines, polylines, and so on, but the block is just one. It can greatly simplify the drawing. These are not the layer attributes, actually these are the feature attributes. That means if I draw a line, its color will be by layer. That means it will take the properties of the layer it's assigned to. its line thickness will be by layer. Again, it will take the line thickness of the layer, and its line type will be by layer. And here we have another commands, groups. You can group elements, but I prefer using blocks instead of groups for most of my drawings. Of course, you can group elements. Like, for instance, you can group a table with 6 chairs around it and group it so that when you select one thing, it selects the whole. And we have measure here and copy paste, you know about it. Copy and paste are universal commands for all drafting programs. Now, first I shall mention several things about selections before drawing anything. If you see, this is the cursor here, the one vertical and one horizontal line. This is where the mouse is, and if I left click here and left click here, it will select everything that it is inside this boundary, fully inside the boundary. However, if I left click from the right to the left, like left click here and left click here, it will select all elements, no matter if they are entirely inside or only partially inside. You will see how that is done later. Let's start with the simplest 2D element, but arguably most widely used. It is the line. The line is simple 2D element because it contains only 2 nodes, 2 points. One in the beginning and one in the end. The command is designed this way so that when you start drafting, now you will ask first why it is attached to the horizontal line. It is because I've marked this polar tracking. If I unmark it, you can see now it's not checked. It will not be constrained to the horizontal, but it is very useful later on. So the line is, I specify the first point by left clicking here, and if I specify the next point, I have created a line. Now it constrains the vertical from this point, or perpendicular even. So I can start drawing another line, but these are 2 different lines. Like if I draw another line and another line and press enter, I finish the line command. But this is one line, this is another line, and this is another line. 3 lines. And if you go to our properties panel, again you left click on the side panel and we go to properties. Or the shortcut is Ctrl+1 for properties. Here is the properties panel. And you see line 3, that means I've selected 3 lines. And it shows me their layer, their line types, and so on. Now I will demonstrate the selection. If I left click here and left click here, you see I've selected just 2 of the lines, because as I mentioned, by going from left to right, you select only elements that are fully inside this rectangle. If I use roughly the same polygon but click from right to left, it will select all 3 lines. You know when lines are selected when you see their nodes. And also in properties you can double check and see if the lines are selected. Now these are 3 lines. If we want to build a polyline is basically same as line, but it has many different segments. So I start drawing polyline from here and I click on the first point of the line, second point, and third point of the line. And press escape or enter. And now this is the polyline. You see, because the polyline and the last line are one over another, it offers me to select one of them. Now if I select the polyline, you see this is one polyline, which contains 3 segments. I can of course move these segments by left clicking on each of them, moving it. Now this is the polyline and these are the free lines. Now in drawing I will explain this because you see it always when I draw. You see some signals when I start drawing, like this green square here, green square, and green rectangle. And you may ask, what are these? These are the snapping specific points of the geometry. Like if I go here, object snap, and right click and go to settings, you can see the snapping points. Judging by the tick here in the square, endpoint, midpoint, center, node, quadrant, intersection, insertion, perpendicular, tangent are all marked. Therefore, if I unmark all of these, or just click clear all and click OK, now if I start drawing a line, like from here, you can see it doesn't snap. Therefore, it's impossible for me to go to the beginning. Of course, if I know the coordinates, I can go to the beginning, but that's another matter. Therefore, I suggest when you go to snapping options, you just always turn endpoint, midpoint, and center for the beginning, and perpendicular, of course. These are the most used. I will explain later when we get to blocks and intersections what the other ones are. But endpoint is the beginning or endpoint of a line, midpoint is the middle point between two segments, center is the center of the circle, perpendicular is the point that will make the current line perpendicular to another line. Like if I start drawing a line, and if I want to build a perpendicular from this point to this line, I just go to here and you see the green rectangle, which actually shows perpendicular. It's actually not rectangle, it's just shows 90-degree angle. And if I left click, even if the mouse is not on the point exactly, but if the point is visible, it will make it perpendicular, like here. This angle is perpendicular. Now, you can draw lines by graphically showing where to draw them, or by typing the coordinates. Now I will type coordinates. Again, go to line and type 0, 0, 0, comma 0. This will start from 0, 0. Turn on polar and type 200. That will make it 200 in the horizontal direction. Now, we can go 200 vertical by again going this direction and typing 200. And now if I want to the next point to be relative with relative coordinates to the previous point, not to the coordinate beginning, I will type this sign, which is of course by shift clicking the 2, and I will type 20, 0. This will make it 20 in the horizontal direction and 0 in the vertical. That will make a 20 length segment along the horizontal. And of course I can have polar coordinates along a certain line. That is done by typing this sign, which is like less than, and you can type 30. That will constrain the angle to 30 degrees. You can see, and now I can just type the distance. Let's type 100. Now, since polar is turned on, I can build a line that connects to this point. That is horizontal along from this one and vertical from this one. That is because I've turned my object snap tracking on. So if I left click here and left click here and press enter. That will finish these lines. Now object snap tracking, I mentioned it. It is again going to the toolbars here, and you have again object snap, and you see object snap tracking is turned on. If I turn this off, you'll see the difference. Now again I will draw some lines, and if I want to head horizontal from this point, I cannot, because object snap tracking is not turned on. It's very useful to have it always turned on. Now these are the ways to draw lines and polylines. Now circle. Let's build a circle. You specify the center point of the circle. The same way, you can either show it graphically by pointing your cursor there and typing the radius like 100, or you can specify the exact coordinates like 0, 0 and 100. Now it starts from 0, 0. Now you can, after you've drawn the elements, you can of course delete them, unless the layer is locked. In this case the layer is not locked, and I can delete the elements. I just select the elements and press delete. That will delete the elements. Now we have our three lines here, and we have our polyline here and two circles. Now with circles you have different options to draw it. You can use the centered radius, which is the most used, but also 2-point, 3-point, tangents and radius, and 3 tangents, which are specific, and they are used if you want to build a circle that fits given. Like you can have a triangle. Let's go to line. We can have a 90-degree triangle, and let's say we want a circle that is inscribed in this triangle. Therefore I will go to tangent, 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 and I will specify first this, then this, and it will draw perfectly inscribed triangle. But it is less often used. It's used like in 1% of the cases you will need a circle with 2 tangents. So I suggest you turn this to a circle with radius. Let's delete this. Now arc. We have same things for the arc. Different options, but basically arc is part of the circle. That in this option I will need 3 points, like these 3 points. First point, second point, third point. Here is the arc. It has of course its center. Now if I draw circle from this center, because I've turned my center object snapping on, when I hover over the arc, it will lead me to its center. This is the whole circle. I delete it. These are the basic 2D elements. Now I will show you how to move them and modify them, and so on. Now, let's say we want to move this circle to go to this point. To move it, you just select the element and go to move here. Now, you need the reference, the base point, which will be the center of the circle, and you go to the destination point, the end point, which will be the intersection point here. Of course, you can type the command. The command is easily typed by pressing just M if you wish not to go to here, and select the circle and move it. Again, M, select the circle and move it. The shortcuts for all these commands I used are very simple. usually they're the first letter of the words or the first two letters if the first letter is used for another command. For line, it is, you guessed it, L. You type L. Pardon me, for L is for Lisp type word. It is a very specific command actually. I think it is less often used than line, but now I remember. So for line is Li, as I mentioned, the first two letters. For line, the shortcut, I don't think there is a shortcut. You just type line. And there you go. For Polyline, you press P-L. Polyline. For arc, you press A and you have your arc. For circle, just C and you have your circle. And all very specific for Autocad is that it's very specific for Autocad that all commands can be either selected from the menu or, which is most often used, just typed, and you can build your own shortcuts. But generally you need to learn that line, you have line and PL, Polyline and so on. Now, we explained how to move your elements. Now how to rotate them. Let's go to the rotate, which is, the shortcut is of course R, O, and rotate. Now it asks me to select the object. Let's select this object. Press enter because I can select multiple objects. Base point will be this, and the angle, let's specify 45 degrees. It rotated the angle, this line, 45 degrees. I shall mention that 45 degrees positive means that it will be rotated counterclockwise. Counterclockwise is the positive direction. Clockwise is the negative. Like, if I want to rotate it clockwise, I will type again row, select the object, base point here, and type minus 45. And it will again be perpendicular to this line. The next command, copy. You know copy. You've used it, I'm sure. To copy text, probably. But in this case, we will copy to the elements. Let's select this same line and press enter. Again, it asks for base point, this one, and we can now copy our line. We copy it here and we copy it here. We have now 3 lines exactly the same, just on different locations. Mirror is slightly more advanced command, but it is also often used. It allows us to mirror a certain element based on a certain line. That will be a mirror line. That means the element will be exactly the same, just with different direction based on the mirror line. Now I will demonstrate it. Let's say we want to mirror this polyline. Now I will delete this arc here. Let's say we want to mirror this polyline alongside this mirror line. Now we go to mirror. The shortcut is of course the first two words, first two letters, mirror, and we are going to set elements, first point of the mirror line, this endpoint, second point, this endpoint. And now it asks us if we want to keep this element or not. If we say no, it will delete this element and create the new one opposite the mirror line, and if we say yes, we will keep both. I will say yes by left clicking here or just typing Y. So by clicking yes, it erased our base element. If we go to mirror again, I can just return it to the same position by clicking again the element, enter, mirror line, and if I click no, it will not erase it this time. n, and we have two elements. Now stretch. Stretch is often used command if you want to stretch certain elements to certain line. Let's say I want to draw a line here, vertical line, and I want to stretch these two elements to reach this line. Now I go to stretch. It asks us to select objects, this one and this one, enter. Base point will be this one, and we want to stretch them to here. It basically stretches them this way, and in this case it looks very much like a move. But if we want to stretch only these vertices of the points, we'll do that differently. Let's press Ctrl plus Z to undo that. You can undo any commands. We again go to stretch, we select objects, select these points. Base point will be this, and end point will be this. Of course, now because I grabbed only the ending vertices, it stretched them only. I didn't select the whole element this time. You can stretch, of course, parts of the circle and arcs and polylines. If I again stretch this type of a polyline, I can basically move it anywhere I want. Now, in this case, if I want these lines to go exactly to this line, I will need to trim them. That's why there is a trim command. We select objects, these objects, and we have to select all three objects because we want to use this as a trim line and this as a destination line. That's why trim, we select three objects, press enter, and left click here to trim this, left click here to trim this, and escape or enter. That's how you trim. You can also extend these lines. If I copy this line to here and to here, escape, I can extend these lines exactly the same direction to reach this line. That's done by trim again. Now I will click select all by clicking enter again. Enter means that it will assume the thing that is written here. So enter, and now shift left click on this line. It will extend it to the nearest boundary line. Because I selected all lines, it found this line and extended it to this. Shift click to this, and of course you can trim it back by left clicking without shift here. This is how you trim. Fillet, it's very useful command if you want to have specific shapes of corners. Let's say we have these lines here, they intersect to here. Let's trim it even for convenience. Now we want this corner to be with an arc that is tangent to both lines. That's why we use fillet. We select first object, we select second object, and it filleted them with radius 0. If I want the radius to be different, I will have to type radius and type, let's say, 20 radius. Now it asks for first object, second object, and it created a new object, which will be an arc. If you have a polyline, however, like this one, if you want to fillet segments of the polyline, which you can do, but the arc segment will be part of the polyline as well. Like we go to fillet, here, here, and this is again one polyline, but it has one more segment here, which is part of the polyline. If you want to have a polyline that is converted to spline, spline is another useful command, you need to use the command pedit, which is very often used. Pedit. Let's say we want this polyline to be turned into spline. We click on it and we click on spline. That will make, and I will press escape, and that will make all vertices rounded and segments rounded. If I want to turn it again to regular polyline, p-edit, click on this and type on decurve, and we have our original polyline. Now, if we want this polyline to become a line, or to be more precise, combination of lines, we need to explode this polyline. The command is x explode. We select the polyline, left click on it and press enter. And we have different lines, like 3 lines, 4 lines. And if you want to convert them to polyline again, if you want to convert lines to polygons, you have to use unify. So, final words about 2D drawing. 2D elements are different varieties, but these are the 4 most often used: lines, polylines, circles and arcs. You can have different operations between them, like for instance you can trim them, move, rotate and so on. But in all cases you need to know that these elements have their own attributes. In this case all are white and relatively with good thickness because their layer has these attributes. If we change the layer of these lines here, like go to the layers panel and select another layer like 0, 0, because all of their attributes are defined by their layer, they change also their line width, their line type and their line color. For instance, if I select a layer that has dashed line, like let's say this one, you can see that the line type is inherited from their layer. Also because these are in different layer than the other ones, I can make them only them visible or make only the others. Like if I hide this layer, if I go to here and press on this lamp here, it will hide the layer 0C1. You can see the objects are still drawn, they are not deleted. It's Lalev from Adisoft signing off and wishing you inspiration in your practice. Don't forget to like, subscribe and post your questions below. I will answer them as soon as possible.